This morning I was out with the J3 or Year 5 group at the very fascinating archaeological dig at Pulford, which some of you may know about, with 9,000 or 10,000 years worth of history there. The children were fascinated. We were shown around by an excellent man who really introduced us to archaeology and local archaeology. He looked a bit like a Neanderthal man, I'm not quite sure, or Neolithic man possibly. But as far as the Fire School is concerned, I am the genuine Neolithic man. Because I was actually at the school, or not at the school, I was there when it was founded by my mother. In 1945, at 15 Abbey Street, which is at the end of Abbey Street, right next to the walls, opposite the cathedral. She started by doing some coaching, and then someone said, well, you're so good, why don't you take on full-time children? And she actually began with one child in 15 Abbey Street. If you actually go down to the end of Abbey Street and look directly at the last house there, you look at the left-hand window, that was where it all began. I'm wondering whether we should put a plaque down there or something like that to remind people of that fact. I was at the choir school at the time. I went to King's School after that, and subsequently to my public school, Monkton Combe. So I actually sort of observed things going on and saw it grow. The first 5 years we moved around from house to house, and literally there was a handful of children. Then we had a remarkable breakthrough in that one of the parents was a major in the army and said to my mother, why don't you rent some married quarters actually on the other side of this wall here, and that was what happened. In 1950, the school actually moved in to that particular place on the other side where there were a number of huts, complexes. Horrocks Road, it was known as then. Of course, it's an estate now, but in those days it was a number of married quarters which were empty. So we were able to move it in there, and the school expanded to about 80 in number. Meanwhile, I was in the Air Force. I then went to Durham University. I did a degree at the university in physics, and I used to come home and the huts were falling apart, and I used to jack them up with a car jack and put bricks underneath in order to keep it going. So obviously something had to happen. Now this building here was actually Longman College. It was a small secondary school, and it was in decline, and the chap who owned it looked across the road and saw a flourishing school and offered to sell to our mother, and she was able to get a mortgage. I won't tell you what we paid for the property then, nothing in comparison to what it's worth now, but anyway, we were able to get a mortgage, and we were able to move everything. And there's actually a wall just down below the stable block down there, and you could actually, on the other side of the wall, you could actually see where we knocked the wall down and moved everything in here. That was the August of 1962. I was due to go to theological college after that, what happened was I went away to Leeds to visit a friend a fortnight after we moved in, and actually my father had come home. They had been separated, but he actually came home for a short while, and he was actually here with us. And when I came up the drive, my mother rushed out and said, the old building is burnt to the ground and your father's dead. So it was a bit of a shock for everyone. He actually had a pulmonary embolism which had gone into his lungs, but that's another thing. The building which we'd had the school in up to a fortnight before had gone completely. I think there was an electrical fault. So we'd been brought in here in a miraculous way, truly miraculous way, and you know, that's one of the reasons why I came back to here eventually, because I felt there was a purpose for the school, a special purpose. I subsequently went on. I went to Cambridge, I did a degree in theology, went on into the ministry. I worked, Ruth and I got married, and we worked in the East End of London, in Hackney, and then we went to St Helens, and we worked up there. My specialism actually was planting churches in urban priority areas. That was my particular interest. And then, come 1985 or so, my mother was in her 80s, and she was still running the school, but it was quite obvious that it couldn't go on like that way. And so I started commuting over here. I gave up parochial ministry and started commuting over here in order to take over from her. And I actually took over in 1987. And the school has developed since then. I mean, I won't go into details, but there's all sorts of things being added constantly. Every year we're constantly developing, constantly investing in the property and in the facilities and so forth. And now, as you know, my son and his wife, Tim and Joe, have joined us in the business. And in the past year, or 15 months or so, he's taken us on a whole lot further because I must admit that some of the things he's been doing with installing, for example, these things here, sort of smart boards and all the rest of it, I mean, I wouldn't have a clue about it. But fortunately he has, and so we're moving forward in that direction as well. So I think in every way, this is a school that has constantly been on the move. And it's very exciting to see the next stage, as it were, taking over. And I hope that you are going to benefit from the education of your children here. I think you will. Our youngest came here, Kate came here, she's just finished a degree in Sheffield in art. And I think it's a first-class education, and we're very lucky to have Margaret with us. She's been here for some time, since her 10th year as head, which is a tremendous tribute to her. She's taken things forward. She deals with the education, which obviously is the children and the staff, the parents, all that sort of thing. We as a family deal more with the financial, the fabric, and developing all that side of things as well. So we work together as a team, and I think it's very happy, it's a successful team that works very well. And we're looking forward to the future, and I'm glad to say that all of you are part of the future. So I hope you feel excited by that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.